Enlivening Musings brought to you by Crystal Franco Pleasure Fairy. Go to crystalfranco.com or crystalpleasurefairy.com for some freebies and great content to let you live fully lit up. Welcome to Enlivening Musings. I'm Crystal.
And I'm Katie.
And today we're going to dive into fine-tuning, embodying certain aspects of yourself, paying attention to the outside, astrological transits, things that are happening in the world, all in the ways to then, of course, feel more fully alive and connected to yourself. So, wee!
I know. It's so amazing to me when I saw someone had posted yesterday and they're like, "Oh, it's a full moon. No wonder my kids are crazy." And I'm like, I can't imagine a time when I didn't know when it was like a full moon
Right.
because I feel like my life is so in sync with what's going on astrologically now. I would be like, yeah, and it's also like an eclipse and we just had one and it's like chaotic in the world right now.
Right.
Because of all of this energy, like it's so intense.
Yeah, there's so much of that. And, it's funny because our conversations always go in 40 million directions. So try to stay with us here.
Yeah.
But when you're talking about that and just the energy being intense and that craziness, it's reminding me of human design and people who have their root center defined and then people who don't and that pressure that happens. And it's just hilarious to me because I was bringing this up to another person. I'm just like, oh, hey, let's look at your chart for a minute. And I was looking at that and I'm like, oh, your root's defined. So people who are undefined might feel all of your the pressure of you and da 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 da. I mean, random little things. We don't need to go on a huge human design thing, but
Interesting.
just these little tidbits and concepts and how you don't know them. And then once you do, you're tuned in and you're keyed into that. Because I have people who, come and see me and they're like, well, I don't know if there's a full moon, but I've noticed that sometimes, and it's like, oh yeah. And this last eclipse, it was yesterday. So 2 days, because I'll probably put this up tomorrow.
Yeah.
We'll see. But it's going to continue to keep unfolding for the next 40-ish days then. And it's a culmination point because everything about this entire eclipse series began in November of 2021. So it's been a 2-year eclipse series. And I vaguely remember when it was starting and just being like, ooh, what's the next 2 years going to bring? And it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. And here we are. And certain ones were more intense than others. But just being aware of that can make you feel so much more connected to yourself because you can tell what's kind of outside of you influencing things and then being able to tune in and yeah.
Yeah, I feel like it helped me realize, wow, I had told Crystal yesterday, I'm like, wow, I got eclipsed big time because I really felt the moon eclipse and the solar one was fine. I think I had a really great day and I felt really great. The moon, it wasn't really intense emotions. And I'm as I'm saying that, I'm like, I wonder if the solar one was more intense for men and the lunar one more for women.
I was thinking the same thing.
As a whole, and then also, of course, depending on all of the placements in our chart and stuff. That's why I think it'd be fun for me to go back and just see what was, yes, try to remember what was going on 2 years ago. I mean, I do remember some things. It was a very intense time in my life, I will say. That really did set off quite a bit of healing in the last couple of years for me. But it always makes me wonder what the exact placements were. Almost like when you can do retroactive astrology is almost more interesting.
Oh, for sure.
Because you can see how it all kind of came to be. And then a lot of times it makes me just feel more okay with it because not make it such a big deal. If let's say I got into an argument yesterday, oh, well, I was, getting eclipsed big time. So I can just move on the next day and not get too wrapped up into it and just kind of laugh and be like, oh, okay, well, moving on now.
Right. Or it was just like
Let it go.
poking at something, just
Yeah.
like having a bruise and you keep re-hitting it, or you bit your cheek and you keep re-biting it. It's like noticing that it's just, this is what's being kind of poked in my own personal chart and like layout and everything,
Yeah.
during and or after the fact.
Yeah, so you
Yeah.
can just maybe not engage. Like I remember
Yeah.
once when we had Shamani on talking about astrology, and she was like, said something about what Mars was doing, and she's like, so just don't like get drawn into any fights, like just, and I think that's so helpful for me to know because like you might feel like, oh, okay, I feel this fight coming, or oh, yep, we want to like have the same pattern repeat, and then you can like interrupt it and stop it
Mm-hmm.
before it does its thing. So it just gives you another feeling of empowerment
Right.
big time.
Well,
'Cause
and
you're not just like a pinball bouncing around in the game of life. You're like, oh no, I see what's happening here. I can like hold this energy a little bit better, I guess.
right. It almost gives you more opportunity for choice.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
then also in that choice, choosing to really connect to you and see, does this even land for me? Or am I just stuck in this egoic or dramatic or cyclical,
Yeah.
whatever mess of it all? Um, yeah. Oh gosh, there was something else that you said that made me think about it. Oh, and I love just like looking at it retroactively as well as even in real time, and how it's not so much that then we're blaming the cosmos.
Right.
It's not like, oh, it's just because this is how it's happening, and or being a victim to it or anything like that. It's more just that awareness. So it's not, oh, it's all their fault, and then you're not even taking any personal
Right.
responsibility for it, or like, like let's say while you're being eclipsed, you're acting like a crazy person. And then you're all like, it's okay, I was just being eclipsed. No, it's like both, but not blaming it. It's being aware of that. It's happening it. And then it's you recognizing that within yourself. And maybe that could be what was inspiring that, but you're still responsible for your own actions and how you're responding to all of that.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it feels can feel like a chance to kind of level up like energetically and spiritually, to be like said, just holding the energy is like, this is a lot going on right now, but I can handle it. Whether it's just knowing that you need some time alone, or knowing you need to go somewhere and like let it out,
Yeah.
or maybe need to go meditate, or maybe need to go to the gym, or whatever it is that
Right.
you need. But yeah, I do feel that when I reflect on how it felt in the last couple of days of like, yeah, there's just yeah, it's an upgrade happening in the system.
Which then makes it so you can live more fully alive and
Right.
like yourself and connected to you, and like being able to listen and honor and do all of that stuff.
Yeah.
So tied into that, I feel, is like knowing your chart, which we've talked about on a bajillion different episodes, I feel like. But sometimes playing with one certain aspect can be really fun. A lot of times people start with like the big three, right? And then it's like maybe then you're going to start exploring just like your Venus or your Mars, or just the two of those things and how they interact. So you're understanding your Venusian self and your Martian self, or which translates into that more female and masculine, and or omega and alpha.
Yeah.
And also just like how they stand and represent in the world. But of course, one of the things that I've like posted about and been talking about a lot lately is just our Lilith, our Black Moon Lilith specifically. There's actually a few different Lilith placements. But the Black Moon Lilith, and how, especially, I mean, it translates for men too, but in a different way. And since right now our audience is mostly women, it's going to be easy to just be like, especially for women, when you start tuning into your Black Moon Lilith, how much that can unfold different aspects of yourself and call in the capacity to be able to really like release shame and love yourself into wholeness because you're paying attention to this one specific aspect of your chart and just how powerful and incredible that is. And yeah.
Yeah, I know a little bit about mine. Well, mine's in Leo. So I mean, as soon as I learned that, it made a lot of sense of like what like I was feeling deep inside. So my interpretation was kind of like, I really want to be seen, but I feel a lot of shame about being seen, like,
Yeah.
period. And that can show up in like, it shows up in every aspect of my life, basically.
Right. I know all the different times Katie and I are talking, and it's like, that's maybe like your Black Moon Lilith.
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny because I just had these I've had like so many insights coming up in the last probably in the last couple weeks during like this in between eclipse time of just like all these like quite deep questions about the universe and what da 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 and who we are as humans. But one that came up for me recently was like the idea of being like self-confident and feeling really good about yourself. And I was having moments of that, but then also feeling the side of like, was that okay? And then it was interesting interacting with my son who's 4, and I was getting him dressed in the morning, and I was like, oh my gosh, you have such cute little toes. And I was like, do you know you have cute little toes? And how he was just like, yeah. And I thought, well, when is it that it becomes not okay for us to be confident and love ourselves? Like, when do we lose that? Some of that I'm sure is just like part of like development, like human child development, but also when that just becomes no longer accepted to celebrate ourselves and feel proud of ourselves and confident. Because for me, when I start to feel that way, there's a little something that comes over that's like, don't you dare.
Yeah.
Which probably is that Black Moon Lilith. Somewhere in my childhood that happened and it was said it wasn't okay.
Right.
I'm assuming is that what that is.
I think generationally, there's a lot of that societal stuff and things that happened in like all of those previous generations, and it's still happening. I can't say it's not still happening because I walk around the world and I'm surprised that certain people still parent the way that they parent because, and it's not just like as a judgment so much. It is judgment though, but as a awareness, you know what I mean? Like, oh, wow, okay, cool. Like, people still shame their kids into doing things or fear bait them into doing things. And I understand it too. Like, I'm not going to say I don't have compassion for that because I totally get being in a place where it's like, how else do I get my kid to do this thing? But I feel like it was so prevalent, and in the last 20 years, so much. I mean, one with just like therapy and attachment theory gaining so much awareness in the world, and people then just shifting into all of the different things with like more peaceful parenting or attachment parenting or however gentle parenting, however we want to like name it, call it. I feel like a lot of it has shifted in the household more. And so it's just like as it ripples out into society for it to change even more for society. But I love how you mentioned child development too, because like I can pinpoint those times in my older 2 kids of when that stuff starts. You know, and it's a little bit like pre-puberty. It's like kind of like right before some of that starts happening. And it's, you know, it's even like the things of like covering ourselves and like not wanting, you know, where before it's like, I mean, I raised a bunch of little nudists, you know?
Yes.
So like I can see the age where that changes, you know, and it becomes this whole thing. And then it's like, oh, don't come in the bathroom and whatever, or whatever it is. And then seeing it change again into like regaining their confidence, regaining their self-awareness. And I just think that that whole like growth period is really, really neat. And as a parent, then I love being able to know some of these aspects or things about my kids too, to be able to like almost call them back into it without even like saying it sometimes, you know, where it's just like a reminder. So, for instance, even just like a human design reminder, like reminding them, you know, in your body if this is a yes or a no, or you know when the answer comes to you. You'll know when the answer comes to you. It might take some time. Just like that little type of a guidance where it's just like, well, you're a reflector, so you're going to know because the answer's going to come to you.
Right.
Or anything like that.
Yeah, that is such a good idea. I like that. I mean, I know my kids' charts, but I don't know all their details quite as much. But I like that of being able to remind them of their own inner knowing that's like the most important thing in the world, I think, that we all need to know.
Right. Well, it's so funny. The things I say to my kids that I'm like, oh, all my clients need to hear this. Like there's times I will write things after having a conversation with one of my kids because I'm just like, that's exactly what everybody needs to hear right now, whether it's for their own inner child or their adult self right now needing to hear ... I have a lot of bedtime conversations with my second born that unfold into these pieces, and it's just such a cool thing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, that's the biggest thing. I feel like we've said this before, but just to remind people, I guess I do that too with everyone almost every day, is remind them that they can trust themselves. Period.
Right.
But they gotta practice tuning into that usually.
Right.
And that's where the work comes in, is you can trust yourself, but most people are like, but I don't know how.
Yep. Yeah.
And that's where, I mean, you can kind of support people, but it's everyone's own journey. I mean, there's just, you just kind of kick the pebble for them and be like, almost like pushing them off a cliff a little bit. Okay, trust yourself. Here you go. Figure it out. And because we all just have to. And the path looks so different for everyone. So, and if I were to guide you, then you wouldn't really be trusting yourself. So, you just kind of got to go for it.
Yeah. And so I'm going to pull that right all the way back to sometimes exploring just like one aspect is really, really cool. And so I have been focusing on the Black Moon Lilith for people right now. So if that is something that you're interested in, go to crystalfranco.com. That's my links page, and right now it's at the very top. It's November 11th. So depending on when you're listening to this, check it out right away. We have the virtual option for people all over the world.
Oh, nice.
For people who are in my area, though, we do have an in-person option as well. So it'll be fun. I've got Shamini coming to do all the astrological aspects of it and talking all about your specific placement of your Black Moon Lilith. And then I'm going into all of the embodiment practices so that you can really integrate her into your life and feed her and love her so that she doesn't show up as an ornery, misleading, scary thing in your life. Being able to really embody that. And it's just cool because it is truly like loving yourself into complete wholeness, especially those dark sides that are just so easy to just try to keep in the dark, but they're under there bubbling at the surface, trying to be seen, heard, and loved. So I'm super excited about it.
Okay, so Shamini will be there and she'll be able to tell everyone what theirs is and explain it on a deeper level. Nice.
Yep.
That's cool. And then you're going to teach them how to play with it.
How to integrate it.
That sounds awesome.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. I'm like really excited about it. I've been doing, all kinds of different collaboration type things like the ecstatic dance. And then there's one other one I don't remember because it hasn't been completed yet. I don't know. I talk to too many people sometimes.
Well, you are a Manny Jenny, so that's what you're supposed to be doing.
All right. And a Gemini with a Mercury Gemini.
Yeah.
And my Lilith is in Sag, which is all about my friendships too. So,
interesting. Yeah, cool.
Yeah, it's fun. Awesome. Well, do you have any last words or anything?
No.
All right. Well, here is to figuring out your own placements, playing with current transits, and just keep exploring and being your awesome magical self. Mwah.
Bye.
Thanks for tuning in. If you'd like more support, hop on the Pleasure Fairy app or find Katie at wellnesswithkatie.com. You can also find us on Instagram at Enlivening Musings if you want to share some takeaways or other requests for future shows. Enjoy.